Good evening and welcome to Foxboro's Conservation Commission meeting of November 6, 2023 at the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street. Welcome. This meeting will be broadcast live and recorded by Foxboro Cable Access. It being 7 p.m., I'll open the meeting. And first of all, welcome John Thomas. He's stepping in for Jane's Pierce's absence. John is a Conservation Commission, not a commission, the agent for the town of Norton. So welcome, John.
Thank you.
You want to do some minutes real quick, like?
Sure. We got the minutes for October 23rd, 2023. The members present were Bob, Jim, myself, Peter, Rich, and Rebecca. The main components of the minutes were about Belmont Pond Dam, the need for extension of their order conditions that expired. And then we had some past certificates of compliances that needed to be updated. And then we also had a review of 29 Baker Street, the enforcement and restoration order progress. The last part of it was 46 Ridge Road proposed addition, which was a discussion, not any formal submittal of any requests. There were a couple items. Well, there's one item for 29 Baker Street, third page, fourth paragraph, that starts with the information. The last sentence, the order deadlines will need to be updated. I think that order should be removed and we should insert the notice of violation deadlines will need to be updated. And the other item that needs either replacing or pick one of the words, 49 Ridge Road proposed addition. Fifth sentence, basically would like to do a restoration to the property including and additions. I believe that probably should just say including additions. Those are the only items that I thought should be addressed.
Anybody else have any concerns?
No.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept the minutes of 10/23/23
As corrected.
as corrected. Yeah.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll call.
We got to do a roll
Oh,
call.
roll call. Okay.
Aye.
Name?
Tanya Orlando, aye.
Rebecca Kelly, aye.
David Opatka, aye.
Rich Galemi, aye.
Robert Bodie, aye. Jim?
Jim Marsh, aye.
Okay. All right. We have 30 Taylor Road, DEP 157533, request for a certificate of compliance. Mr. Buckley, you want to address that first before we get into the new NOI?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. So good evening. My name is Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group. And what Mr. Bodie's talking about is a request for a certificate of compliance. When we came before the commission a couple of months ago for a request for determination of applicability for 30 Taylor Road, Jane pointed out that there was an open order of conditions from, I'm not even sure when, a couple of years ago when they built a new septic system. We were not involved in it. And the system was constructed, but a request for certificate of compliance had never been requested. So we've, on behalf of the client, who was actually not even the owner back then, Mr. Gennard is the owner right now, it was Jack Arthurlet and Marge back then, we requested a certificate of compliance for that, and that was simply for the septic system on the lot, which is, again, is in, and I'll show it to you in a moment when I present the plan. I reviewed it. They received a certificate of compliance from the Board of Health. It seems fine to me. Pretty straightforward, I think.
I'd just like to get this cleared up before we start opening up a new one, so. Any comments from the board? Somebody want to make a motion to, and I see no reason why we should not issue a certificate of compliance for this one, so. Somebody want to make a motion on that, please?
Make a motion to accept the certificate of compliance for 30 Taylor Road.
Yes, 157533. Right here, second. Discussion. All in favor? Roll call again.
Tanya Orlando, aye.
Rebecca Kelly, aye.
David O'Patrick, aye.
Rich Galemi, aye.
Robert Bodie, aye.
Jim Marsh,
Is sound in on that?
He said yes.
Jim Marsh, aye again.
Okay. Being 7:05 PM, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and Foxborough's Wetland Protection Bylaw, Chapter 267, the Conservation Commission will open a public hearing on Monday, November 6, 2023, at 7:05 PM at the Gala Meeting Room, Foxborough Town Hall, 40 South Street, and via Zoom on a notice of intent filed by Elliot Gennard for the demolition and reconstruction of a single-family home with associated grading and utilities at 30 Taylor Road, Assessors Map 174, Plot 004. Portions of the proposed work lie within 100 feet of a resource area. The application is available for inspection at the Conservation Office. Mr. Buckley.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. Again, my name is Bill Buckley, and I'm here representing Elliot Gennard. As I just stated earlier, we'd come before the commission several months ago on a request for determination of applicability to demolish the existing house and to build a new house in the same, almost exact same footprint. The commission at that time decided that they would file a full notice of intent, and subsequent to that, we also did a site walk with several members. That was on September 6th. So what we hear back before you this evening is the filing of the notice of intent. And I know you all have the small set of plans. I'm going to put up the plan here. I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit so we can see it better. So this is the existing condition plan, which is sheet 1 in front of you. And as you stated, this is the property on Taylor Road. It's about a 13,300 square foot parcels of land here. And I say parcels is because the parcel is actually split by Taylor Road, which was accepted by the town of Foxborough in May 1985. And so at that point, this was, I think it was one lot, maybe it had been several smaller lots, but anyways, it was a contiguous lot. And Taylor Road at the time was just a dirt road. And what the town did was going back in the 80s, actually, there was quite a few town roadways that had not been accepted. Some of them were fully built. The neighborhood I grew up in was a fully built subdivision, and the roads had never been accepted. So the town went through and accepted them. In this particular case, I think one of the reasons they did it was so that they can go in there and do maintenance and pave it. So what you can see here on the plan, if you look up here, is you can see Taylor Road right down the middle. The garage is located on this side, and this is the septic system that I was just talking about. So this is a very odd system. I should go back again. There's wet and bank on all sides of this property. So along this east side, this is bordering vegetated wetland along here, and along the west side, this is the water. It's basically all water, edge of water. There's no BVW around here. It's either solid bank, sand, edge of water. So this entire parcel either is in a buffer zone for BVW or inland bank, Almost all of it is within the 25-foot no disturb zone, the town local bylaw. It's in a bordering land subject to flooding, because Miramichi is a floodway, has a flood zone within it. And so it's a very tight, a very sensitive area. So as you can see, it straddles it, so the garage is on the right side. This is the septic leaching system right here. And over on this side, this is the septic tank and the pump chamber that was built back in that I guess it was 2015 septic system. We're not proposing any work on that. The work we're proposing is the removal of this existing one-story dwelling. It is one story, it has several levels on it inside there though. So if you came in, the door, I think there's a drop right there, and is relatively flat, most of it. Then you go into the back corner, which is down in this area here, and there's a step down in that area there. Clearly, this was built in pieces, probably like most of these camps back then. I've done some research here, and I've looked at the USGS maps. I brought them with me if anybody's interested in that. And it clearly looks to me that something had been here since at least 1940, and perhaps even earlier than that. But in the 1940 USGS quadrangle, it's clearly there. So the point I'm making, as I point out in my letter, is this some dwelling has been here for over 80 years. It's not something that was recently installed. So the work that we're proposing is the demolition of this existing house and the construction of a new home. So I'm going to go to the next page, which is sheet 2 on your plan. I know it's kind of tough to see, and it's a little busy. So what I've done is I've left and I usually do this, I left the existing house on there so you can see how the new house overlays on it. So the existing house is kind of shaded out, and the new house is in orange. I think it's orange. It's either orange or red in this particular case. So you can see what we did is we held this house dimensions all around it. The only difference is in the back. There'll be a deck and a porch that is on the first floor. This is going to be a walkout. So the basement will be at the ground level, and this will be picked up. So that deck and that porch will be about 7 or 8 feet above the grade back there. So the activity taking place back there in order to install that would be the construction of sonotubes. So to put the pilings on that will hold up the deck. And we talked about that, and I'll talk about it again in a moment. The house is actually surrounded in the front. If you remember, when you walked up to the house, it's all pavement. So it's road and pavement all the way in the front, and then there's a driveway kind of to the right. And so what I'm pointing out here is it's along the front here and along the right there. So one of the things we're proposing in here, again, this was part of the discussion, was not just to maintain the house so that it wasn't any closer and any bigger than Miramichi. And I should note that this is a 2-bedroom home, and it continues to be a 2-bedroom home, is that we're removing all of that pavement, and that will become landscaping in the front. And on the right side, again, one of the recommendations from the commissioner, I don't remember who, was to remove that existing pavement on the side and replace it with permeable pavers. So we've showed that it's going to be about a 10 by 25 foot area, which is approximately what you have now. And that will be, we'll put permeable pavers in there. Had some, I actually just looked at a project the other day with permeable pavers. It came out fantastic. Guy did a great job. So I'm a little leery about using those on roads and stuff, but in this particular case, I think it's a good amelioration of the site. And I point out in my memo is, so the percentage of impervious area on the site will be reduced from 17% to 12%. That doesn't even include the permeable pavers. That's just taking out the pavement in front and putting in some landscaping in that area there. Sediment control is that heavy dark line you can see around the outside of it. We'll be putting that in, again, at the beginning of the project, and that would be the very first item we do. We have to install that, and it would consist of a mulch-filled silt sock with an orange construction fence. So this area is flat. You're not going to get, I don't think you're going to get a lot of erosion, things moving around because it's so flat, but it's also very tight. So that was, again, was one of the comments that was made during the sidewalk. We need to pay attention to that. So we're putting that around the outside there. And if you look over here on the right side, as you're looking at the plan, which is on the other side of the property, but still on the property, there was an area there. If you were on the sidewalk with me, I parked there. So that area is already flat. It's already used for parking. So I thought that would be a good area. We'll use that for dumpster and lay down materials. Because we can't block Taylor Road. As you've been on here, it's probably, I don't even know what it is, probably 18 feet wide. So it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a lot of coordination because there is going to be some blockage. You'll have to coordinate that with the police department. But what I would suggest is we put a sediment control barrier around that area, and we'll use that area as a lay-down area. I don't want to use the area on the garage because on the right side, that's where the septic system is, and actually that's probably a little bit, well, it's probably about the same distance from the wetlands. So those are some of the items we talked about. If you look over here on the top of the plan where I'm pointing, I show that a compressor on a raised platform. So one of the things that we have to do is we can't mess with the grades on this site because we can't fill within the flood zone because that's a no-go. So we're holding the currently there on the property, but we do have to raise any of those exterior structures that are handle, a compressor, if they put a backup generator or something out there, which isn't part of the plan right now. So we will put that on the platform, and we would raise that above the flood zone, which right now is elevation 161.4. So the compressor has to be at least above that elevation, and that would be on a platform, again, a wooden platform with just like a deck would be put on there. We talked about, if you, again, kind of looking around the side here, there was 2 stumps that were there. Those stumps will be removed, and we keep going around counterclockwise. I talk about contractor has to construct the deck and porch columns by hand or bobcat before digging the foundation. Again, it has to do with tightness here. So the first thing that's going to happen is that foundation's going to go. Then they can go back in that area there and do their digging for those sonotubes. And then what they can do is then they can start working on the foundation. So that way they're not going to try and bring a machinery around the outside on either side of the proposed house. There's a decent amount of landscaping around the back there. I should have taken some pictures. But along the rear, as you look at the house, along the rear especially, there's very heavy vegetation. It's like low, bushes. But they hug the ground. So we talk about that. We talk about leaving the landscaping in place to supplement the sediment control, and then it has to be replaced after the construction is complete. Over on the left and right side, as you look at the lot from Taylor Road, there's a retaining wall. It's a concrete wall on the left side, a stone wall on the right side, and then it's a concrete wall in the back. We probably won't be very close to the concrete wall in the back, but on the left and right sides, we're going to be right up against it. We're not proposing any work in those areas. I've looked at them. I don't see any issues with them, but we do show again the erosion silt sock right on top of them.
Bill, while you're pausing a second.
Yes.
That stump on the right-hand side, the very large stump.
They're both.
When you're removing that, what happens to the retaining wall on there if you, because some of those roots seem like they may go down into the retaining wall.
Yeah, they might. I mean, what we could do there, if that's a concern, we can just grind them. We could grind those stumps.
I just don't want that retaining wall breached.
Yeah, neither do we. So that's a good point. So I'll make a note that we'll grind those stumps and not pull them. We talked about, I did kind of touch, I'm going to go over again, is the construction sequence. So we install the erosion control, we'll grind the stumps and remove the existing house, install the columns for the porch and the deck and the platform, and then we'll construct the house. And then we'll install the pervious pavement driveway and landscaping. And again, this is kind of subject to change because, you know, we don't have a contractor on board yet, but I really don't, if it changes, we'll come back, but I don't see it changing. There's really not a whole lot of activity you can do there. So if you go, stay on the second page, please, and go over to the right. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on this. I know there was a lot of concern about the water, the pond, making sure that there wasn't. So I did a fairly detailed erosion control and stabilization schedule. So we can, if you just kind of bear with me, I'm going to kind of walk down it. So this tells the general contractor what he has to do. He has to review the approved plans and order conditions with the agent and with me. Erosion control and limited work fencing has to be placed, and then I have to approve the location of it. DEP sign has to be placed on the site. Order conditions recorded. We always record the order conditions. So that's not an issue. We do that first. We want concrete barriers placed around the septic tank and pump chamber because I don't want truck traffic to go over it. They were designed for what's called H20, which means theoretically a tractor trailer can go over it, but let's not test the theory. So we're gonna do that. And then the Foxborough, then we tell the contractor he has to coordinate with the Foxborough Police Department on traffic control. He has to maintain access at a Long Tail Road unless the police approval is obtained. So that was my first paragraph prior to any work. And then we talk about dust and debris control. I tell the contractor he has to have a water supply available and he has to continuously wet down the house during demolition to ensure that airborne dust and debris is minimized. We just had this issue over on Lake Archer in Rentham, and it worked well. At the end of each workday, the contractor has to remove any debris along the beach and in the water if something does fly in there or go in there. And then the dumpsters have to be covered anytime it's not actively being filled. So in that laydown area, the dumpster has to be covered. It can't just be open. Things can blow into the wetlands because it's that close. Next paragraph talks about the clearing and initial excavation. Tells the general contractor to remove the shrubs and grade the area as shown on the approved plan. There's no backup sediment control. Ensure that there is backup sediment control barriers on site. Retain the landscaping as much as possible in rear. Make moats and berms to prevent runoff toward the lake if necessary. I don't think it's necessary. I think the sediment, 12-inch heavy sediment sock is going to do the trick just because it's so flat. But if necessary, you can do that. During storm events at every workday, he has to place a tarp or jute netting over disturbed areas to prevent runoff from the site. And then if no work is to be done in an area for more than 14 days, he has to stabilize the site using the specified seed mixture. And then at the final grades and stabilization, the contractor has to have the engineer check the grades and stabilization measures once the grades are final. Seed any disturbed areas within 1 week of completion of site work. We talk about how the areas have to be raked, lightly raked. Don't do it in the heavy rain. Fertilizer and lime are not to be used. The seed mix is the New England Erosion Control Restoration Mix for dry sites, which this is. And then we tell them to lay the biodegradable weave jute net blankets on the seeded area until the grass cover has been established. And then if jute blankets are not practical in certain areas, which I think in this particular case they should be, then we tell them to use salt marsh hay. And the reason we do salt marsh hay, it doesn't contain weed seeds. So I've tried to cover all the bases here. Of course, I'm open to any comments and additional suggestions. We understand the concern of this. We're trying to do try to keep it idiot-proof. You can't outlaw stupid, but we try. And so that ends my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Bill, on the proposed decks, can we look at cantilevering the supports as opposed to going sonotubes into the ground? Because it's so close to the water there, and
I suppose anything is possible. Prefer not to do it because it's probably going to be pretty costly. But that area back, I don't know did you go back there, Rich?
yeah.
It's grass. It's
Yeah.
just area that's there now. We're really not, it's not in any area that's,
It's just you're right on the edge of the water.
hasn't been disturbed, yeah. Yeah, we're about 7 feet off the deck, off the concrete wall in the back. It's actually right in the area of that stump we were just talking about. I mean,
Is that one deck, or is it two decks? 'Cause you
there's a deck and a porch. So one is open and one is covered. So the deck side, as you're looking at the drawing, the top piece is a deck and that's open, and then the bottom piece is a porch. And that actually had to go before the zoning board of appeals, and they approved it
Was it both above,
they're both at the first floor elevation.
which is 5 or 6 feet above?
Yep, so if you look at the finished floor is 163.12. We are at 160 down in the back there, and then you add another foot. So it's like 164.12 that would probably be where the top of the deck is. So about 4 feet.
No.
No, I'm sorry, it's 168. I'm looking at the existing grades. The top of foundation is 168, the grade in the back is 160. So you add another foot to that, it's 169, so it'll be about 9 feet above that. To give you some idea, and I didn't do this, but as you're driving down Taylor Road, I wasn't the engineer, the house before this on the left, it's right on the water, where you make that heavy turn, that sits up high too, just like this. I think it's gonna be very similar, and that looks like it had to have been a tear down, that's relatively new. So that's what you'll see here. The front of this house is going to sit up high, and that's because we're trying to keep, right now, this crawl space is in the water table. So we're keeping it up above the water table, so the basement won't flood. Well, won't flood any more than it currently does.
How deep down does the basement go?
160, so the basement floor is going to be elevation 160, so that's the grade at the back. And then what you'll have is they'll put footings down 4 feet below that. So 4 feet below that will be a frost wall that holds it up. So your frost wall in the back there will be around 157.
Are you going to hit the water table?
If they do it now, maybe not. I haven't been out there lately. It's probably dropped quite a bit. It's been pretty dry. But during springtime, yeah, if they try and do it in the spring, yeah, they're going to be in the water table.
But you're not going any deeper than you are right now. You're going to rip up the concrete.
I don't know what so right now, if you stick the crawl space underneath the foundation is 159. So we're a foot higher. Our basement floor is a foot higher than the existing crawl space. I don't know what the foundation is like underneath that now. So I can't say yes or no on that.
So Bill, the I guess the bordering land subject to flooding or the FEMA elevation for this property site is what, 160.4?
161.4, yeah.
161.4. Okay. So anything below that elevation, you know, you're gonna have to go through the building department, I guess, for their requirements, right?
He has to do, you know what it is. We
Yeah.
just did it on
Elevation
Bay
cer-
Road.
Elevation certificate and the whole 9 yards, yeah, for the NFIP. So I guess the question is, so existing conditions for this one, what currently is below 161.4? So what would be considered within BLSF currently?
The crawl space.
But I mean footprint-wise for the building and stuff.
It's the same as what it is now.
So,
It's about 34 and a half times 30. So we've tried to match the footprint almost
Okay.
exactly.
so the whole entire building footprint's in the floodplain? Is that what you're telling me? Okay.
Maybe not the front, maybe not the very front, but yeah, I would say pretty close to
All
all
right,
of it.
I would identify that, so that way we can confirm that it's less than the 5,000 square feet, just to be able to issue a permit. Because the commission's only allowed to give 5,000 square feet.
Yep, I mean, we know it is, because that lot on that side's only 4,000 square feet.
Yeah, what I would do basically to make it a bit clear cut and streamlined is just show a dark bold line of where the FEMA elevation is on this, just draw it on there, and just kind of just outline kind of what the outline of the building is that's in it.
Okay.
I'm not sure when you're planning on doing it, but if you do it in the spring and you do hit the water table, how are you going to take care of dewatering that so you can pour the concrete?
So typically what we do, and I can add this to my drawings, is we'll create a area that might be stone or something like that, that we'll pump into, that will, any sediment in there will settle in that, and then it will just run off into the lake after it filters through the stone or whatever we use. You might use some netting or something like that. So it would be a sump that would pump into, and then we just let the water run off.
The stone, would that be a pile of stones, or are you actually going to dig a pit for it?
No, we won't dig a pit.
It's above ground. It's an above ground system that they basically can transport and get rid of.
Oh, okay.
So I'll add a detail. I'll add a detail to that. Add a
Yeah.
dewatering
A
detail.
dewatering conditions would be something I recommended too.
They also used a dewatering sock on the project, on the railroad,
Yeah,
up
they use,
underneath Route 1, because they were working with dewatering
yeah, they use,
clay-type water.
they use chambers too. I mean, just depends because you're limited on space here. So,
Yeah.
you know, the only problem is, you know, something that could easily be movable would probably be preferred, especially with the tight knit kind of situation that they're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the sock too, usually on wells. It's a good idea. I'll talk to John about it.
Any other comments from the, Rebecca?
At the moment.
John, any other comments?
I mean, I think the main component here is just setting everything up for success. I mean, obviously, you know, just having those silt barriers monitored on a daily basis, I mean, that's going to be on the applicant to do. Dewatering's always been an issue. Just making sure that the applicant understands all the necessary permits that are involved with this and steps and procedures. You know, the other concern, I guess, was that, you know, obviously the commission has a 25-foot no disturb policy or no alteration policy, and that's something that they'd have to basically waive for this project to occur. So, you know, by issuing an order of conditions, they're basically accepting that. But I just don't know if there's anything that the commission wants to add to that on other projects that they've done for waivers. Obviously, I don't know because I haven't been here very long, so, but, you know, if it's been something that is acceptable, then.
I don't think we've ever done a waiver.
We typically do not vary from that 25-foot. However, this is pre-existing, so it's.
Right. And I think that's where it would be potentially acceptable because you're basically upgrading the existing conditions of something that was there prior to any of the enforcement or administration regulations or anything of that nature. So, you know, obviously there's no new rules in place now, but at the same point, it's just modifying what's currently there or what was previously done.
Would that waiver request be part of the order of conditions, or is it a separate document?
So I
that
think,
gets
I think part of that, so I've done them before. Obviously, Norton doesn't currently have a bylaw, so for instance, we don't usually get those, but we do have a 25-foot no disturbance policy for vegetative removal. And typically what I do is I ask the applicant to send over a formal letter or request of them stating how it's going to be an overall improvement or what they're proposing is going to be an overall improvement to the current conditions. So I would leave that up to the commission to request that of the applicant if they feel so necessary.
I think Mr. Buckley is writing that down as we speak.
I should know it off the top of my head, but I don't. But I just had to dig back into the regulations and talk about. I think there's an exception for existing single-family homes. So, but I have to check that. So that's my job, and I will come up with justification for that.
Bill, what happens if you get in there and start the work and, for instance, you're grinding those stumps or just starting the work and that stone retention wall doesn't hold? Like, is there?
Well, we would call you and say we have a problem, and then we'd have to come up with a solution. So.
What would happen would be, it would be an emergency kind of permit that would be issued by the Conservation Commission to make repairs. And in order to do so, they'd basically need to do a lot of work. So it's in their best interest to basically make sure that that doesn't happen. Obviously, there's a lot of sensitivity with this site, but also kind of any sort of impacts that may impose to the integrity of that wall.
Bill, do you think a silt sock is going to stop runoff on that paved area going towards the lake? Because as you know, Taylor Road swings some of its drainage on both sides into the existing parking area. And then you get traffic going back and forth, when they're digging it out, and you're going to have stuff on the street. I don't know, silt sock will really capture, if you have a heavy rainstorm, all the.
What's your suggestion?
I'm asking you,
Well,
unless you pull up that pavement, where you get the bare gravel, but then you have maybe a better situation, but not the best because of the runoff coming off Taylor Road.
Well, when we were there, the runoff appeared to be coming down here.
It came, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of it was down here, which is, and I didn't mention this, but I should, and we talked about doing something to stop the erosion there. Actually, the road was crumbling into that. So we're going to put in vertical concrete curbing in there to stop the erosion as a detail of it. But I think, right down in this area here, this is the low spot of Taylor Road, 162.6, 162.4, 162.2, 162.4. So this is the lowest spot right in this area here. So, I mean, I suppose I could put something on this side as well. But I mean, we do have a pretty decent buffer there, and this is all vegetated. And it's flat, and the swales it's not silt, it's not till, it's sand. So I don't think we're going to get a lot of erosion from the site. And if the contractor does his job and sweeps it every day, we should be all right.
I was just putting that question out there because silt stocks, you can get water undermining it on top of pavement.
We also have the fence.
Typically, what I do with my projects is I always request that the applicant have ample amount of siltation devices on site. So in the event that they do see an issue, they can basically make any sort of modifications to the, to ensuring that no runoff is going to any sort of resource area. So I think in the event that, you know, there were some sort of lowland issues, or, you know, you had a substantial amount of rain or some sort of event, just having that stockpile of sedimentation devices on site, the contractor should be able to put those in place.
I agree. That's in my notes, and I'm pretty sure that it's a standard condition.
It is.
In the board's thing, it says it has to be a supply of that material. So that could be part of the discussion we have pre-construction with the contractor to make sure that stuff is on site.
I think we should make that notation in the order, because I don't think that's a standard condition.
Yeah, check it out, check it out. But yeah, you can put that in there.
Anything else? Do you have any comments from the audience? Will you be ready with that additional information for our next meeting?
When is the next meeting?
November 20th. Next two meetings, got November 20th and December 11th.
Let me just see. December 11th it is.
December 11th.
I have something on November 20th.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion to continue the hearing until the December?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing for 30 Taylor Road, map 174, page 004, TEP 15763, until December 11th.
Wait a second.
Second?
Before we vote, have you heard anything from the DEP? Have they sent any comments or?
Now, they have somebody new there, so they comment on everything, but, did you see that? Was it, what comments were?
I didn't look, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I looked at it, but there was nothing there that jumped out at me. Quite frankly, a lot of times, they're wrong, so I just, so I don't know. If there was something there, I would have addressed it, but I don't have it. But I'll look before we come back the next time.
All right. All right, with that then,
Second.
second, okay, again, roll call.
Tanya Orlando, aye.
Rebecca Kelly, aye.
David Opatka, aye.
Rich Columbia, aye?
Robert Bodie, aye. Jim, are you still with us? Oh, I guess not. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, get that out of the way. Okay, Sousa Avenue, Barrows Lane, River Ridge, 157576, request for certificate of compliance.
That's Mr. Buckley's project also.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I've been talking to John about this, so there's some things he wants us to add to our plan, which we're working on right now. And so when we get it done, we'll coordinate, make sure it's satisfactory, and I'm guessing, I mean, you can probably put it on for that next meeting, because if it's, we won't need to be there if it's okay.
All right.
Can I say something? John, I'm very familiar with this. I've walked it enough times, and I walked it today. We do have a lot of situations here that, in particular, a lot of the silt fencing and the silt socks are still in place and not rotting like they should,
Okay.
and they should be removed. The silt fences should be removed. In some of the places, they're associated with the drainage, and some places they're associated with the wetlands. Another thing, Bill, they filled in 20 to 35 feet of parcel B on our land.
Who's they?
Whoever put that fill in there relative to the road and the drainage. You know that little stream coming through B from the big wetlands in the back, that's conservation land? And it flows into that riprap and then a culvert underneath it, and it continues behind the houses.
And that disappears, yeah.
Well, they put additional amount of fill in there that's on currently our property. It's conservation land, parcel B. And they never removed it.
From the road? I mean, is it the slope, or you're talking about they just dumped material there?
Beyond the edge of the road layout.
Well, yeah, it would be beyond the edge of the road layout, because we have to fill to the edge of the road layout, and then it slopes off.
But it's more than what, it doesn't show that they are going to do it onto the plans. And then there's no construction easement on parcel B.
We wouldn't do a construction easement on those parcels. There's no construction easements on those. We only put them on the lots, because those are the ones we're conveying out. We would never be conveying that out until after the road work. So I'll look at that, though.
You're right. It's quite extensive. It's more than necessary for the slope for the side of the sidewalk and where they planted the trees. There are also some places on the site that either the bounds were covered, or if they're there, they're definitely buried, or didn't get covered, or didn't get placed.
Every bound was placed, and when we walked it,
Okay.
it was walked. We go through this drill all the time. We walked it, and then, 2 years later, they say, oh, we can't find it. So we'll uncover them for you. You just need to tell us which ones you're talking about.
Yeah, I wouldn't try to search for all the ones, especially if they're associated with the land relative to what the town owns.
Yep.
And
All the signs were put in, and the bounds and monuments were put in.
now parcel A and parcel B are fee simple conveyances to the town.
Yes.
The signs say conservation restriction. It's not the right signage.
We don't make that stuff up. It was approved by somebody. So you'd have to talk to Jane probably about that.
Yeah, because the conservation restriction is the old Porter places where, he was doing his business, the septic business. That's
Right.
up in there, and that's relative to us and fishing game, and heritage, endangered species people.
Right.
These are fee parcels. So, and on the final site plan that we should get as Conservation Commission, the rest of parcel A should be on it. In this case here, only a portion of parcel A is located relative to your street approval plan that you have to submit to
Right.
the town
Right.
for approval. So we don't see the rest of parcel A and what's been bounded out there.
So that was one of the comments, and we're preparing a separate plan that shows the parcels with all of the monuments on it. So you'll have a plan that shows you where your land is, and well, you already do have a plan that shows where your land is, because it was in the subdivision plan, but this one will show where all the monuments are and what they are. Iron rods, concrete bounds.
Yeah, I was waiting for a full compilation of everything that was required with the as-built plan, and then to go take a final sweep out there and take a look at the site. So that's my plan to do, but I'm just waiting for Bill to send that over to us.
Want to team up?
We can do that, okay?
Yeah, so if you could send me an email, write me a letter, come by the office and just show me these things to make sure that we address them
I think the easiest thing to do would be just to mark up a plan and send it over.
That's what I basically
Yeah,
did today.
if you don't mind sending me that as well, I'll.
Yeah, that would be the best. And then we'll just address the things that you need addressed.
So,
Okay.
But as far as, you know, slopes that are, you know, that you think are too far, I don't know what, if it's piles of dirt that shouldn't be there, that's one thing, fine. We can get rid of those, we'll tell the contractor. But if it's just a slope that maybe is a 4-to-1 or instead of I mean, to go in there and start digging stuff up now is just, you just do more damage than it's not doing anything.
yeah, it seems like that, he also, on that little stream in there, they put a small machine in there and disturbed more of the stream in the drain easement, but beyond what was shown on the plan, the riprap,
Are you talking about on the wetland side or the other side?
on possibly in the wetland side.
Okay. All right, just mark it up, and we'll grab Bobby Baker and figure it out.
Let's skip 25.
I just checked 30 Taylor Road, no comments.
What's that?
I just looked at the DEP,
Oh, okay.
no comments.
Oh, interesting. Oh, well. I'm going to skip West Street for now. 29 Baker Street, we have a resource area restoration plan.
It's Laura.
Good evening.
Does everybody have a paper copy in color of the restoration plan?
Yes. Well, I should speak for myself only.
Who needs a copy? I have some extras.
Okay.
And share my screen as well.
Lauren, can I get one of the ones that's in color?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Oh, thank you.
John, do you have one? Okay.
You're gonna give them out to everybody, huh? All right.
Thanks, Bill.
Donate that to us.
Oh,
We can come and read the bill house.
oh, okay.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Lauren Gluck from Power Corporation, here with William Lord of 29 Baker Street to discuss the wetland restoration plan for 29 Baker Street. We were here at the last meeting to give a progress update on the fieldwork we had done on the site and the resource area delineations and evaluations, which had found that there is a freshwater wetland at the rear of the property that had some inadvertent wetland disturbances from some backyard clearing and grading activities, as well as a non-jurisdictional drainage channel feeding into that wetland system. So also during our last meeting, we talked about some preliminary recommendations we had made for restoration of the area, and since then we have formally submitted a restoration plan showing those proposed improvements. So I can kind of go through what the proposed improvements are. This area here, if you can see on my cursor here. So this is the area where we had found hydric soils underlying some fill that had been placed within the cleared and graded area. We had delineated with series HW, and that's about 390 square feet of vegetative wetland fill. I should also note that the vegetative wetland that we had found, it's only jurisdictional under the bylaw as an isolated freshwater wetland, and that the limits of the volume of the flooding here are not enough to constitute it as an ILSF under the Wetlands Protection Act. So this plan is being only filed under the bylaw and not the Wetlands Protection Act. So this 390 square foot area here, this area is intended to be restored through removal of the fill material. As we were doing our soil cores, we were finding that it was about 12 to 18 inches plus or minus of fill material over top the native soils. So it was a pretty clear distinction between the kind of gravelly, sandy fill, and then you hit those kind of organic native soils. So we would propose that that fill material be removed from the wetland area, and then the resulting exposed native soils be replanted with a robust community of natives. So we have a number of different species here to create kind of a diverse little wetland with some saplings along the edge, some shrubs, some herbaceous plantings, and then also a wetland seed mix here. And then upon completion of those plantings, sediment controls would be placed along the upper margin as shown here. And those would remain in place until the surrounding slopes are stabilized. So right now, there's a lawn area to the rear of the house, and Mr. Lord's intent is to plant the area between the lawn and the wetland with a pollinator meadow. So he wishes to establish this area, although this doesn't have a buffer zone under the bylaw, his intent has always been to create a native kind of habitat that enhances the landscape with some native species, pollinator-friendly seed mix. I believe we have it as a conservation or wildflower mix. So that would be run by the commission before it's selected. And then, in addition, we had talked a little about how the downed trees from the property had been stockpiled along the wetland upland border here. And the intent here was to create what's called hugelkultur mounds, which is a type of permaculture gardening where you take woody debris and then you do plantings in it, and the woody debris retains moisture that feeds the plantings. So we would propose to keep those in place along the wetland upland border, and there's a number of blueberry and raspberry plantings that would go in those logs along the wetland upland border. And then on the opposite side of the wetland here on Railroad Ave, there had not been any disturbance by the owner over here. However, he does wish to create kind of a little more of a vegetated buffer here where there's kind of an early successional vegetation community. He wishes to establish an evergreen screen. So we're proposing some red cedars alternating with big blue stem in that area. So it's just inward of his property line that he would put a row of these alternating plantings here and then also down here. So then the other big element to this is there was about 18-foot wide fill material crossing for equipment when Mr. Lord did his original tree removal activity. So this is across what we had determined to be a non-jurisdictional drainage swale. However, there was some restriction of flow there when water entering the upper end of the swale was kind of being held back and ponded up. So the proposed plan shows this kind of, it's in brown here. This is what's being proposed as a replacement crossing in this area. So this 18-foot wide section that's pretty close to the vegetated wetland would be removed and replaced with a crossing that's about 12 feet wide, including the shoulders, and fitted. You can't really see it in this graphic, but there would be a culvert to allow the flow to pass down slope into the wetland as it did before. So I believe that covers all of the elements of the restoration plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Oh, also, I wanted to mention that in the enforcement restoration order, there were a number of items that involved buffer zone. So we wanted to acknowledge that this area doesn't have a buffer zone. So any of those non-applicable items that are in there, they would not be held to.
Okay.
I'll also add to the commission that by creating the culverted cross-section here does not make this jurisdictional because it's being done through the enforcement, so it's still considered an IVW. I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
So it's not a BVW once they put the culvert in.
Any other comments about the plan?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if the commission has any other opinions in addition to what I've commented upon.
So you're maintaining that access from the roadway? The town gave you permission to keep that?
I didn't ask.
I thought you were going to. Just see whether you need permission for a curb cut, essentially, is what you've done.
Currently, there is no curb on Railroad Ave.
The access point from the roadway. I thought you were just going to ask the DPW.
Laura, the upper part, north part, is shown going into another parcel of land.
Yep.
which happens to be owned by us.
Yep.
Why are you doing work up there?
We're not actually doing work up there. We're just showing the wetland boundaries up there because we delineated it as part of the wetland that could potentially affect this parcel. So we're not actually proposing anything up here. Actually, there may be, sorry, there may be one raspberry plant that ended up across the property line. So we can push that back on the other side of this. This red line here is the property line, I believe.
So you're going to ignore the shaded area that you got in there that was going to be planted?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was a graphical error. So that would be cut back to the property line. I apologize. We can make that quick change and send you the updated version.
Okay.
Okay, you were asked at the last meeting to confirm whether you could do that or not by the commission.
I was told that the highway department was what, someone was going to ask, but wasn't, I didn't understand it was specifically asked.
Zoning, is that right, planning?
Yeah, so for instance, typically when it comes to access and secondary egress to a property, it's a zoning criteria, so you'd have to go in front of the zoning board of appeals to know whether you can have a secondary access to the property.
Okay.
And they would intend to complete this work this spring. I know there were some deadlines in the enforcement order as well. At this point, we're at the end of the growing season, so it's really not an optimal time to establish vegetation in an area. So this would be done early spring, right?
After the first frost.
Yeah, after that frost.
Okay. Yeah,
Can you come up with any suggested dates?
Suggested dates for like the earliest we could start?
Yeah, just to give us something to put, replace the dates.
April, I guess. It would be-
April 1st is the start of growing season technically, or April 15th.
Yeah.
I mean, you can throw those two dates around.
Yeah, and we need to make sure all the plant material is available, and then, if there are any substitutions needed, we'd run those by you, but, yeah, I would assume like April-ish.
Okay. Anything else? Any other comments? All right. So you're going to find out definitely whether you can have that crossing or not, and then we'll see the plantings in the spring.
Yep. Yeah, and in the notes here, it does say that all the excavation and planting work would be observed by a wetland specialist, so I would intend to be there to observe that excavation, make sure that we're getting to the right grade and the plants look good and all of that, so, and as part of that, we'd be reporting to the commission as is required.
Okay. Is there any runoff potential now for the winter? Is it stabilized enough that we're not going to get siltation into the wetlands now?
It seemed pretty well stabilized. There was some grass along the back slope. I think with all the rains we had, some of the grass seed had washed down on the slope, and there was, some cover, and then there are a few trees there. So, I think it seemed pretty well stabilized. There is a silt fence around that he had installed at the limit of the wetlands. It's still in good shape. I think it should hold up well through the spring as well. And I think it's, better to leave it in that condition than to expose a bunch of new soil right before the winter, so.
Okay. John, you happy with that?
I mean, there were only some other recommendations that I had. Obviously, it's the 2-year monitoring, for making sure that the plants actually grow. And then the other recommendation I had to the board was, putting up some sort of physical demarcation of where this mitigation area is, so that way it can be monitored in succession. But those were the only 2 recommendations I had on behalf of the applicant.
So since this is, you don't have to close it or anything, any other comments from the board? So you will notify us when things are happening.
Yep.
Okay.
So then the enforcement order is essentially lifted now to allow the work to be
Yeah.
done. Okay, great. So we're not expecting anything in writing from the commission before this has to commence? We're just notifying you when this is starting?
You will notify us and
Yeah.
then basically provide us the reporting afterwards. In
Yep.
good faith.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay, thank you
Great.
very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Next, we have Garrett Spillane Road Progress Report. Okay, where's that one? Okay.
Good evening.
evening.
I'm a little embarrassed to show my planting plan next to this one. Um, But
I'm still screen sharing.
you don't need to share mine. Hopefully, you all got a copy of it. Really, my attempt just to kind of get the ball rolling in terms of coming up with some actual pricing. In terms of where I'm running into difficulty is, I guess, pro and con in terms of the informality of what we agreed upon. We really didn't set any numbers, so I'm hoping to get something in writing for numbers so I can get some firm pricing to kind of get the work completed there in terms of the additional plantings that we agreed upon. So that's kind of where I am right now, so. That's basically it. I kind of gathered what I could from the various meetings and conversations and kind of put that down and what I thought would be a good plan, but really, not my area of expertise. So hoping to get your guidance here and maybe some direction forward so that in the spring, we've probably missed the planting season now, so in the spring, I can kind of just jump right in and get it done. I think in the meantime, still trying to kind of clear up some of the invasive species over the winter. I think that's kind of my goal right now.
Okay, and protecting some of the small plantings that you have, was mentioned, putting some wire around some of the smaller trees that, so the deer don't come and denude the,
It'll reduce your need to put more trees in, because we originally targeted about 40 trees for this area.
Yeah,
So if you can save the ones that are there by caging them.
yeah, there's definitely a bunch of stuff growing up
about a
naturally.
foot high or so, or a little bit more now.
Yeah, a lot of the pines took I think the red oak or maples, a lot of them unfortunately didn't make it, so probably have to replant some of those, get them a little bigger, and put some more protection around it. So that should save, I guess, in terms of some of the plantings, but wanted to kind of get your take in terms of, directionally, what you think of that plan in terms of the sheer number of trees versus plants, so on and so forth.
A lot of these plants are either, except for the red maple, are upland plants. What's
Yeah.
what's the soil like over there?
The entire area in my yard is all upland. It's actually very dry, and I got these from, Jane actually recommended
Okay.
these as good plantings.
Okay, so basically, there must be a clear, I haven't been out here, to be honest with you, so I'm just thinking like out loud, is that, so there must be a clear divide in the distinction of where the wetland soils are versus where the upland soils are, correct?
Oh, yes. And this is a vernal pool, and you have some wetland soils that start coming away, and that's where the high bush blueberries are, and some others.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it sweeps up.
So there's a very clear transition
Oh, yes.
line.
Yeah.
So basically, what you're looking at here is, it's a very abrupt transition from what I'm gathering. So, the species that you identified or that are being presented would thrive in upland conditions. I guess the question is, were those taken into consideration as to kind of what species are currently there I guess, to really promote the additional species to be able to thrive like they would for native New England? I guess that's my question. So was it identified
Yeah.
as to what species were there currently?
Yeah, there's definitely some low blueberry bushes. There's the sweet fern already growing naturally
Okay.
there. Pine trees, there was a bunch planted already.
I'm not a big fan of pine trees.
I,
I'm gonna throw that out right now.
they're there, and they were planted as kind of part of this initial planting plan prior to me being the owner. So they're there. I would like some more. I think my plan has evolved a little bit to where I want more shade to get rid of some of this overgrowth, like the vines, the raspberry bushes have kind of taken over. The buckthorn has taken over quite a bit. So I originally liked that it was open down there and wanted the low ground cover, and I think that's where like the bearberry, the blueberries came in.
Right.
But now it would be nice to have a little more shade there because we moved in August and it just gets a ton of sun back there, so.
Right. So the question, I
Some
guess,
shade.
to you is, so you're gonna plant 6 to 7 foot trees, right? Those are gonna take a while to grow.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be opposed to putting in bigger ones. I think one of the concerns was like machinery back there, so.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, you're gonna have to wait a little bit for those trees.
A lot of what is bordering my property is kind of taken over quite a bit and is like starting to grow over. It's not obviously what it was, but I've even noticed in the time that I've been back there.
Predominantly, it was originally large pines and large white oaks. Very few red maples, except down close to the vernal
So
pool.
what you're telling me is this is an improvement of what they're proposing?
It's improving to what's out there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big improvement as to what's out there.
So, I mean, it looks like, based on this diagram and sketch, that, you're proposing quite a bit. It's going to be quite an extensive workload for yourself. I presume you're going to get a contractor to help you out with this?
Yeah, I'm working on that right now, so I think where some of the landscapers are shying away a little bit is some of the history of this project and some of that we don't have concrete numbers in terms of what, so they're shying away from it a little bit, but, I'm ready to roll my sleeves up and just
Start digging.
start digging, honestly. So it's either I pay someone to do it or I may end up doing it. Depends on where things land here.
Okay.
One of our restrictions in the past applicant, after the disaster, was that if anything's going to be restored, it has to be done by hand. We did not.
Yeah, everything's going to be manual. Yeah, I mean, especially within a sensitive area like this.
And the slopes are not it drops.
It drops off, so it's not going to be very forgiving for doing this by yourself, just to let you know.
Yeah, I've started to pull some of the invasives and it is daunting. We did have about 20 feet of the invasives removed by a landscaping company, so I kind of just started to mirror what they did in terms of what they pulled and what they left, and so hoping to really get, as Jane said, a clean palette or a clean slate, clean my easel, I think that was the term. If I could do that over the winter here and then just be ready for planting, whether it's me or if I just hire a company to come in and do some of the plantings with the board's oversight here. I think that was kind of like where you want to see stuff. I'm fine with that. Just want to kind of get that area back on its way.
He's received a lot of good information. We've been there, 3-4 times? And talking with him, Jane has too. So he's got a lot of knowledge.
So this project was subject to a, what permit?
It's subject to a restoration order, yeah,
Restoration order.
yeah.
So what was it originally? Was it an
The-
RDA
The
or?
builder went in and basically, excuse the expression, he just cleared the land right all the way down and beyond his property line. And unfortunately, he moved the house so that it was out of the 100-foot buffer and put the septic in front of the house. So he just said to the homeowner, it's your problem. And he took off.
Well, that's unfortunate. I apologize for that. No one should be subject to that sort of kind of.
I
Oh,
agree.
he did plant about half of them plants of trees that we had discussed with him in his restoration order. And most,
They were tiny and they got.
yeah, tiny. So the deer had a good feast for the next 2 winters.
So I guess the question is that if there was no permit ever filed, then an as-bilt's not going to be required for this. It's just mainly an enforcement. So mainly what we would like to see is basically to ensure that all the work that you potentially do on this site also be in compliance with our rules and regulations here in Foxborough. So we just need to make sure that none of the work that has been done to date for your residents is located within the 100-foot vernal pool buffer.
So I think you picked up on that. We had some of an informal agreement where I got a little bit of an additional yard back there
Okay,
in return for additional planting and restoration, just kind of being a good steward
okay.
from where things had been left. So I think it was a win-win all around for everyone, for me,
Okay.
certainly. So that's where we are probably a little bit in that 100-foot with the yard. But, you know, I'm pretty sure everything was agreed upon before we did it.
Yes, we basically came up with, and Jane was involved, Rich, myself, Bob. We saw it worked out over a couple of meetings where that 100-foot line is. And then we found out that he actually moved the house closer to the street a little bit more, give him more room in the backyard so he could get around it. And then when the contractor came in, well, to help get some loom and stuff back there, we worked out with Linux.
Yeah.
Where the line is that we would agree upon and no further,
Okay.
which basically is almost what you see on here, the, well,
That brown line there.
So.
yeah, the brown, it's a little bit, that brown line's a little bit further closer to the
So
house. So
my recommendation, and this is nothing against you, but when houses are sold, I know from history that people like to push the envelope. So my recommendation is for the commission to, you know, in addition to the plantings, put up some sort of physical demarcation of that line that was agreed upon. So that way for the future of the, you know, ensurety of protecting that vernal pool, whoever may own the house in the future, yourself or others, they know that, for instance, it's a sensitive area out back, and that way, for instance, they don't, you know, we don't find out that somebody's, you know, expanding their yard or something in the future. So
Yep.
if that's something that you're willing to do, I think, you know, I'd be recommending to the board to say that this is a good plan.
Okay. Yeah, we had discussed the split rail fence and the signage. And if you ever do get out there, it's a pretty clear line of what the drop-off is there. So I wanted to put it up anyways. So I'm glad to do that, keep it separate. But I also want to kind of restore that area, make it look better than,
No.
make it up.
Overall
better
improvement of
habitat.
something that you never did, so that's, you know,
Yeah, yep,
don't forget to use the weed whacker on the raspberries.
yeah. Starting to get down there now, so. Definitely take those, get rid of those things.
So from what you just told us, you're planning to increase the number of trees you're gonna plant there?
From the 6,
Yes, because we're looking for about 40 in the original proposal.
yeah. So what do you think, numbers-wise?
start at 4.
You got to think of base diameter height when you think of trees. So you got to think about canopy and stuff and everything of that nature too.
Okay.
So there's actually some calculations online when you look at things, the spacing. Just look at planting spacings, you can Google it, or I can provide you some kind of guidelines too. So, but just kind of figuring out where the area is. Obviously, the understory stuff, you don't have to worry about as much as just the trees. 40 trees in a given area of this nature would basically exceed that kind of parameter. But I think it's definitely something to think about.
Okay.
All right.
He's got some sedges that are also growing there naturally now.
Yeah. So I mean,
So you got to count the ones that are there already, too.
Yeah, I did a rough estimate. There's probably another 10 small pine saplings. There's those black cherry trees. There's at least 10 of those things that we've kind of saved.
If I could suggest on the,
Yeah,
where the vernal pool is, to maybe concentrate some of the
Yeah.
larger trees, because that's just exposed right now.
yeah.
It's just-
What's great about the vernal pool is, you know, of the species, they love shade, and they need shade basically to thrive. So trees along the vernal pool would be a good idea. Sedges and low-lying kind of blueberry and those along the slopes. Don't put any trees on the slopes because they'll probably just fail. But then, for instance, the other kind of shrubs and stuff you can put at the top and bottom of slopes.
Okay.
I would just really prioritize that kind of stuff.
okay. So once within what I proposed, right, maybe 10 trees, something along those lines, 10 additional?
What I'd suggest you do,
Yeah.
it's just me, is go and count the trees that are there now.
Okay,
Let's see how many you have there, and let's go from there. And,
okay,
Again, my focus and my concern, and I don't know the rest of the commission, would be prioritizing in front of the vernal pool.
okay.
Try to make sure that it doesn't die completely.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So once we know how many you've got there, and you do have a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you to just take some chicken wire and put them over it. And
Even
stake
even the
around.
pine trees?
Pine trees, I don't care.
I'm with you on that one.
But
I
you
think,
got a fair spaced out pine trees there from the last planting. So that's, you know, in middle of the slope, and that helps there eventually for the shade. But that's gonna take a while, but the deer won't eat them. So ones that are important are closer to the vernal pool. And you got 6 red maples located down here on your plan.
yeah,
That's close, it probably could be closer,
the vernal pool, that
Yeah.
area, agreed.
because they'll have more water for the roots.
Yeah. So in the spring, am I okay just to kind of move forward with the planting right now without?
Yeah, just let us know.
I think the best thing for you to do is just to notify the office and say that I'm getting ready to, you know, take on this task.
Okay.
And coordinate with the Conservation Department, and Jane at the time can, you know, walk you through the process.
Sure. So there's still a question of my mind in terms of where things stand with the order of conditions. I was under the impression that there was supposed to be a partial upon those initial tree plantings, which was never filed for. And then there was a stipulation that there could be additional plantings, and then the full release was supposed to be, assuming everything went the way that it was supposed to go, should have been the fall of this year. I'm just, for my own purposes, if I do go forward with the restoration and the replanting, would that be enough to get the partial release and then like another 2 years of oversight, or how does that work?
So I guess my question, I'd have to ask the commission this, so is this of the overall project, there was an order of conditions for the overall project?
I think it was just the individual house.
So there was an order of conditions for this lot?
I'm not sure what the status is, Diana, do you?
I I would say that's probably expired at this point, I would think. but I
Okay.
don't really
So
know.
if it's expired, they can still they still have to go to COC. So this is the whole entire thing that I guess was trying to get at is if you have to file for a COC, I thought this was just basically an enforcement action that was coming because there was illicit activity. But if there was an original permit for this site, for this property, then what you need to do is you need to get a COC, which means you're going to need an as-built plan, and you need to have to file that too. You're going to have a surveyor, and they're going to have to basically locate everything. And the issue that we have now is though, then for instance, we basically need to document for work within the 100-foot of the vernal pool, because that's not compliant with our bylaw.
Yeah.
So that's where you currently are, and you have to basically identify kind of what after-action improvements have been made. So that's a little bit more involved, if that's the case.
I'll check tomorrow what the,
Okay,
that would have been under Carlbrook Construction, because that
Yeah.
was.
Right.
yeah.
And I thought he was looking for a partial release,
Okay,
but then we had the enforcement order on him.
yeah,
He just walked away from us.
Yeah, and
yeah,
then,
he just, yeah.
Does the fact that he moved the house out of the,
Yeah,
May
he
mean
moved,
that the
yeah,
order
he
conditions
moved the house
doesn't
closer to
apply?
the street.
So
And
if
I
that was
think-
the case, then he'd have to basically amend his order of conditions because he was previously permitted to do a certain activity.
Yeah,
And so basically, if any activity occurred that was outside what was on the plan in conservation's jurisdiction is not valid. So basically, there's a step in the system where he needed to basically follow through. That never happened. So currently, there's something
open on it.
open
yeah.
that needs to be resolved. And unfortunately, the current landowner is going to have to, be the bearer of all that after-action kind of work that needs to happen. And, one of the things that could happen is, in light of it, if it has expired, the landowner could come in for a request for determination and basically come in and basically hopefully put this all to bed for just basically fixing what was done previously by the developer. But at the same point, if there's a invalid COC that needs to basically be fixed and kind of issued by the commission, then that needs to be done too.
Yeah, it could be that since he moved everything out of our jurisdiction, he just said, I don't need anything, so he just walked away from it.
Right. So if that's the case, and, you can confirm, besides kind of the minor thing that you've agreed upon, then there may be an option to say that the work was never done as initially proposed. You come in for a request for determination, board makes a determination, and then can just, make this, a doable project.
Yeah,
I think one thing though, there may not be a COC because when they initially showed the activities on the lot, there was a disagreement about whether that vernal pool was certified or not, which would, if it was, the 100-foot would come into
it
effect.
was not certified.
But it was
Certifiable.
during COVID,
Yeah,
and the initial information didn't come up onto the register with the states. So there was a disagreement there saying that, look, our activity is outside, it does not affect the vernal pool.
I guess the question is,
Wait a minute,
Yeah.
the house activity, the septic system, the lawn was outside. But when he didn't monitor his land clearing people, they just, which the trees were already up to the street, they just went and totally wiped out the whole lot. They made money on that lot because those trees were huge.
I mean, there's probably a scenario, like that, probably, it happens. It happens all the time. I mean, things happen after the fact, and, if that pool, I mean, I think it has a high number too, based on what it was like in the 8,000s. So it was fairly recent, so,
yeah,
yeah.
so,
That is the history.
yeah.
All right, so-
Not a history, but yeah.
I mean, if that's the scenario, I mean, I think, the right tact would be you know, as part of this is just to record it properly and just do
It was never, yeah,
it basically,
Yeah.
you know, close out the COC for this lot that, you know, is owned by the applicant and, you know, give a partial COC, but then have him file a request for determination, which incorporates the restoration and, you know, confirms that, you know, only a slight portion of the project is currently in the vernal pool habitat buffer, but the commission agrees that it won't impose any sort of negative impacts to allow for vernal pool migration and things of that nature.
so, yeah. Okay. Get all that down, Diana.
Sorry.
I'm just gonna look for the, I'm gonna look for the old order and see
Yeah.
what's on
Okay.
it and what's not on it. And
Okay, so
Uh,
basically, count the trees, check in the spring, get the
and I'll
work,
let you know what.
we'll get the work
what's
done
going
one
on
way
with the
or
order.
another, and then we'll kind of figure out the details there to get
Yeah.
everything. Okay,
Okay.
good with that. Anything else? Any other comments, recommendations, or,
No, I think,
no?
My biggest
I think
one
you're
is
on the
that-
right path.
Okay.
Just need to increase the trees, or let us know how many trees are
Need to get home to the kids.
All right,
Okay,
thanks,
thank
everyone, I
you.
really appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it, have a great evening.
Now we have Beaumont's Pond, Mr. Rongioni.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Michael Rongioni, 12 Beaumont's Pond. I'm here on behalf of Beaumont's Pond Homeowners Association. Requesting an extension of our order of conditions, and I know that was, I think, brought forth at the last meeting. Unfortunately, I was not here. To be honest, I didn't know I had to attend that, so therefore I was not here. So it's not like I was intentionally missing it. So I hope that you'll, you know, grant us that extension so we can continue the work over on the pond.
Okay, I guess some of the concerns that we had, and the reason why we did not offer the extension at the time was, what is your plans going forward? I know you want to do the tree cutting now,
Yep.
but we didn't want to leave everything wide open for an extended period of time, so.
Sure, totally agree. We kind of talked about that when we were going through the whole approval process of doing a phased approach. So the first phase of it was tree removal, and that's what we currently have a contractor on board for. Cut the trees down. We're going to leave 24 inches or 30 inches of stumps exposed, so there's no tripping hazard. And then the next phase would be to get a contractor in to pull the stumps, fill the holes with, silty type of material, and then backfill it with topsoil, reseed the embankment, and that's the next phase of the work. Obviously, as a homeowners association, the funding of it is an important piece, and the extension that we're requesting was somewhat, the reason for it was the delays with getting tree companies on board and getting pricing that was reasonable for us to move forward with. So that took some time, unfortunately, but now we're at the point where we have something in place, and we have funds available even after this phase one is complete. And I actually today met with a contractor to walk the site to see about the next phase and trying to get, kind of some pricing in place for doing that. So we feel confident the association, all the homeowners are on board with this. The funding of it is a big piece, and there are three mechanisms that I think we have thought through in our minds. One is the current funding. The other is every year we generate a certain amount of money with our dues. And then there's an assessment, of course. We can assess the homeowners if need be, but certainly we're not hoping to do that. We're hoping that we can get the next phase done within the budget that we have and what we're striving for.
Now, for the repair of the dam, is that all you have to do to repair, or is there other work? with the tree removal to repair the
No,
dam.
that's it.
That's it.
Tree removal, stump removal, and then grading it to reestablish the embankment.
Okay.
You're just cutting trees, and that's it? I thought you were rebuilding the dam.
No.
No? So
No,
after you cut the trees, what's the next phase?
Pull the stumps and the surrounding roots, backfill the hole that's there, and then regrade to put it back to the same general profile that's there now. We're not raising, we're not doing anything that way. There's no hydraulic analysis that has been done to suggest that we need to raise the elevation of the crest of the dam. So it's reestablishing the grade that it is there now.
That may have been my miscommunication there. I put in dam repairs in my memo, so sorry about that, Mike.
It's okay, it's fine, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So you have the funds to cut the trees,
correct.
but you don't have the funds to do the removal of the stumps?
I don't know the answer to that yet until I get
okay. But
pricing
that's the
for that
issue, though.
next phase. We have,
Actually rebuilding, and I thought you were
No,
rebuilding the dam
no.
itself.
Nope.
Okay.
we're not rebuilding. This is all based upon recommendations of a 2015 report that was presented to us. Every 10 years, we have to do an evaluation of that as a Class 3 low-hazard dam. So those are the recommendations. Remove the trees, pull the stumps, and regrade. And that's what we're here to
Okay.
try to do.
So when you pull those stumps, especially that big oak, it's gonna make a
Big hole.
big hole. So you are gonna end up rebuilding that when you,
Well,
but you're just refilling it.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, there could be 2-3 foot, maybe larger holes there when we pull that stump. And the roots, we gotta chase the roots. We don't wanna leave any roots for any passage of water down the road. So we're trying to chase it as best we can and as little disturbance as we can.
Because that's our concern, is that you cut the trees and then you don't do anything for another 3, 4, 5, or 6 years. And
Yeah.
then water starts seeping in, and it's already going in underneath that dam, coming out.
Yeah, we understand that, and I think, our mindset was cut the trees, remove the risk of topping and uprooting and causing an immediate potential failure. We understand if you leave stumps there, like, I don't know if any of us can really tell us how long the roots are gonna decay. Is it 3 years, is it 10 years, right, whatever. But we are being proactive. I think we've kind of shown that we are proactive in moving this forward to the next phase, and we can continue to do that. So that is our plan. We don't want to be spending the amount of money to just cut the trees and then just walk away. I don't think that's doing the homeowners any good. We want to protect our assets, so,
Have
That
you
is the
already
plan.
started cutting,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
even
Well-
though your permit expired?
He didn't understand it that way.
Okay.
So
He thought he was
there was a
gonna
I will say that there was a miscommunication as to kind of when the COVID relief tolling period is terminated. And unfortunately, this one was very close to when the termination, it was the same year. So that's where the miscommunication error was. I've had it happen to me a couple times already in Norton. So, my board has been gracious to basically, give that kind of relief because of the event that has occurred with COVID and people not understanding the terminology or the extension period. So, obviously, anyone that comes in now, basically, we do remind them that there is a sensitivity that any project that it is issued following the May 2020 period, isn't subject to those relief periods and needs to basically understand that there is a deadline, and typically it's 3 years.
Yeah, I'll take ownership of that. That was a misinterpretation on my end. So that's on me.
Any other questions, comments?
Now, you put up the sedimentation controls?
Yes.
Diana, you said,
Somebody who lives closer to East Street, she said the sedimentation coverings is shifting. And she wanted to know how long the whole project was going to take,
Well, the
a timeline.
the tree removal piece was scheduled to be done within a week's time frame, and then the next phase is the next phase. I don't
I'm
understand.
talking about plastic, something about the plastic moved.
I don't, I can't comment on that. I don't know what she might be talking about, but there is silt fence on the downstream side of the access way. And then we are gonna put a composite filter sock on the upstream side when they start activity on removing
I
the
think
trees.
she's just talking about the part that's right on East Street that,
Yeah, we just put that across the access way to limit
The-
activity
yeah.
going down
Mhm.
there,
Yeah.
and maybe it's blowing with the wind. So,
yeah.
She didn't happen to say that there was activity out there, did she?
No, well, she said she walked down there
Okay.
and noticed that, the tree cutting was at the beginning and there was nothing done down near the dam.
Okay. So it seems that, there's no issues with the silt fence. I mean, we were out there on the 27th and saw that the barriers were in, and, I made some recommendations on how to proceed moving forward. So I think, this project could definitely be issued an extension, provided that, provided that we, as we discussed at the meeting, that we met on that date. But I leave that up to the commission to make the decision.
The only thing I'd say is is just to try and do your best to get it done within the 3-year period.
agree,
If you have issues with that, come to us early.
absolutely. Will do.
Did you extend the recommendations that Tom gave?
I'm
The
sorry?
silt fence, he says to the dam?
So right now, we haven't been back out there since we vacated the site. So once.
They're waiting
we-
to receive an extension
Correct.
before
Okay.
they start going with, spending the, $4,000 or $5,000 extra of silt fence. So they're waiting to get that extension before they spend the money to do that.
And to Rich's point, I think we discussed maybe you coming back after a year to give us an update on how you thought,
I'd be happy to do that.
whether you thought it would be done, the kind of time frame if you had the money for it. Yes.
Yep.
Is this a written extension form?
Yep. So somebody want to make a motion to?
So the only thing I need is a date, hereby extended to. So it was originally issued October 5th, 2020. So John said I could backdate it to October 5th, but you just got to.
So it expired, it expired 2023. So for instance, it would be 2026, October 5th, 2026.
Right, you want me to make a motion?
Yep.
Make the motion to extend the orders of condition for DEP 157596 to October 5th of 2026.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Roll call.
Yep,
Oh.
yep. We're gonna start.
Tanya Orlando, aye.
Rebecca Kelly, aye. David
Patka, aye.
Rich Galemi, aye.
Robert Bodie, aye. And Jim, I don't think he's with us, so,
Did he have another meeting to go to?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So, Rich, I think it's there to, all
Thank you, appreciate it.
right. Oh, Susan Phillips says hi. Okay, we have 25 West Street, DEP 157029, request for certificate of compliance.
I did find a file. Go back and look at it. So there was a few things done in 1978. They proposed an addition somewhere along the line, but it was never built. So they got a certificate of compliance for that part. and then they had a negative determination in 2004. But the original order from 1978, there was no certificate of compliance. They're now selling this property, and they need this as part of the title chain, I guess.
So I guess my main concern with the board, I guess it's different how every commission goes about this, but how does the board feel when it comes to perennial streams that come into small ponds and then quickly discharge downstream?
Don't think we've had the issue before. That
Okay.
Moore Street.
Morse Street, yeah. Well, that one's still up in the air, so,
We start with a pond, you
Yeah.
go over the spillway.
yeah.
Then you have what was almost considered riverfront, and then it goes to another ponding area before it becomes a stream. So there was a big debate on that.
Right, because the reason why I ask is, typically when houses are sold, they are either looking to do some sort of potential development or potentially do a tear down and rebuild. So the question then becomes, does Shoddy Mill Pond have associated riverfront area or not? And that's where a question becomes where, I've had this happen as a consultant, I've had this happen as a conservation agent, where certain boards have certain takes on how this works. So I guess the question is, does Shoddy Mill Pond have associated riverfront area associated with the Wading River, or does it not? I guess the question is, any sort of potential improvements that were done following 1996 when the Rivers Protection Act came out, they would have to be retroactive. So whatever new work that was done on the property following 1996 would be subject to riverfront calculations, cumulative, and that's where you would have kind of the question for if a new potential buyer came in and they wanted to do no new work on the property, that's the question that I would have to the commission.
Well, any new work they would have to file something with us.
Right, so they did come in front of you back in 2004 for the addition project through an RDA, but it was never called out in the RDA as to kind of whether it was in riverfront or not.
Well, this
2004, I could not remember,
So I guess my question then is, so if it wasn't a potential issue at the time, then for instance, my take on this is that the commission at the time did not feel that Shoddy Mill Pond had associated riverfront area. Therefore, that's how the pond should be treated in the future for any sort of potential development.
yeah.
Isn't this house below the spillway, adjacent to the water coming out of the spillway?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that would be riverfront. But the pond itself is a pond. It's been there
Yeah.
for decades, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I don't know if you could call that riverfront when it's a pond, a mill pond, that's been there for decades. It'd be more a regular pond, water, flooding,
So
bank.
it is a man-made structure that's considered an impoundment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So there should be associated riverfront area in accordance with the act, because that's what it states. But my question to the board is, how do they feel towards this? Because each board's different.
Yeah. Okay. I guess anything new that if
Would need to be reinvestigated?
we'd reinvestigate it.
Okay.
As long, now I know we got snookered on one plan a number of years back and, fooled me once, shame on you. Okay. They got an intermittent stream. It was way away from the property we were dealing with. And it was almost off property, but intermittent. Okay, it doesn't apply. It's well beyond, even if it was riverfront, it didn't apply. Unfortunately, the developer came in on the other side, and we had said it was an intermittent stream, and we should never have approved it. So, but as long as there's no plan out there that says what it is now, I think we're safe going forward.
Okay. So if that's the case, then I would recommend that the board issue a full COC for this project. And then, for instance, if the new buyer or anyone that comes in for, anything that they want to do, they would have to reinvestigate it and potentially file with the Conservation Commission.
Correct.
If they do.
Yeah.
Well, it does have an unpermitted in-law apartment.
What's that?
It has an unpermitted in-law apartment. In-law apartments need to be permitted through the planning board. There never was one. And it's being marketed as a multi-generational home with a complete au-pair guest/in-law apartment with its own separate entrance.
Oh. Now, are they going to run into problems with the planning board on that?
If the real estate agent does their due diligence, yes.
Interesting. But this certificate they were requesting for is 1978, so it was prior to that, so.
I think we should go with the recommendation to
Yeah.
include the other two activities that occurred later.
Yeah, because the current design for that obviously is from 78, so all the upgrades and improvements that were done on the property followed that. I would just list them as to kind of what was done and the most recent, so that way you could basically have a time track of kind of what the most recent permit was.
Where do
Okay.
you put that on here?
We can put it into, there's a section that I can put it on there.
All right. So somebody want to make a recommendation to issue the certificate of compliance with the additional information?
Oh, it's over there. Okay.
Recommend that we issue a certificate of compliance for 25 West Street, DEP 157-29, with the additional amendments to be included concerning the past activities.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Tanya Orlando, aye.
Rebecca Kelly, aye.
David Patka, aye.
Rich Galemi, aye.
Robert Bodie, aye. Opposed? None? Anything else? John, any closing comments?
Nothing to add this week, but it's been a pleasure working with all of you so far, and look forward to some more projects.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I gave you guys all the Revolution, applied for a
Yes.
determination for a turf field, I believe it is. Part of their,
We never issued a certificate of compliance for their project.
they're asking for a partial certificate of
asking for a
compliance as
partial.
part of this.
Okay.
That's part of it.
Sorry.
How much she signs that?
Work to bring back the
Do I hear a motion?
Ever do citizen input?
What's that?
Did you ever ask for citizen input?
Yep, I did.
I just like to talk to one of yous after we,
Oh, okay, after the mics are off? Okay,
just, get some information.
okay. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Do we need a roll
Rich
call for
Galemi,
that?
aye.
David Patka, aye.
Rebecca Kelly, aye.
Tanya Orlando, aye.
Robert Buddy, aye.
and now that it's all shut down, we still